Words cannot express how deeply moved and grateful we are right now. When we started this journey, 10,000 subscribers felt like an impossible dream, but here we are, and it's all because of you. Every single one of you who clicked that subscribe button, every comment that made us smile, every like that encouraged us to keep going, every suggestion that helped us improve, you've all become part of our family. There have been moments when we felt like giving up, when the views were low and the doubts were high, but then we'd see your messages of support, your excitement for our content, and suddenly we remembered why we started this. You didn't just help us reach 10,000 subscribers. You helped us believe in ourselves and our dreams. To every viewer reading this, to your families who maybe watch alongside you, to those who share our videos with friends, thank you from the bottom of our hearts. This milestone isn't just ours, it belongs to all of us. We promise to keep creating content that makes you proud to be part of this incredible community. With all our love and gratitude, thank you. Let the story begin. The rain pounded against the windows of Romano's, the most expensive restaurant in downtown Seattle. Inside, wealthy diners laughed over wine that cost more than most people's rent. Outside, pressed against the glass like a ghost, stood Keisha Williams with her 6-month-old baby Isaiah clutched to her chest. Her stomach had been empty for 2 days. Isaiah's formula was gone. The electricity in their tiny apartment had been cut off 3 days ago. She had exactly 14 cents in her pocket and nowhere else to turn. The sight of people throwing away half-eaten steaks and untouched bread rolls made her feel like she was losing her mind. This was rock bottom. This was the moment she never thought would come. A college graduate, former marketing coordinator, reduced to begging for scraps like a stray dog. The thought made her sick, but Isaiah's weak cries made her sicker. She had to swallow her pride. She had to do this. The doorman, a large man in a crisp uniform, spotted her immediately. "Ma'am, you can't stand here. This is private property." "Please," Keisha's voice cracked. "I just need to speak to someone inside. Just for a minute." "Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to move along." Isaiah began crying harder, his tiny fists waving in the air. Other people on the sidewalk stared and whispered. Some pulled out their phones. Keisha felt like she was in a nightmare, but she couldn't wake up. "My baby is hungry," she said, tears mixing with the rain on her face. "I just need some food. Anything." The doorman's expression softened slightly, but he shook his head. "I'm sorry. I really am. But I can't let you in." Through the window, Keisha could see a waiter clearing a table. A full plate of pasta sat untouched, probably going straight to the garbage. The waste made her feel angry and desperate at the same time. "That food," she pointed with a shaking finger. "They're just going to throw it away. Please. I'll wait by the back door. I'll take anything." "Ma'am? I'm not a bad person," Keisha said, her voice getting louder. "I had a job. I had a life. But my boyfriend left when he found out I was pregnant. I got laid off when my boss found out too. I've been looking for work for months, but nobody wants to hire someone who's about to have a baby, and now nobody wants to hire someone with a baby." The doorman looked uncomfortable. A few restaurant patrons had noticed the commotion and were staring through the glass. "I have a college degree," Keisha continued, not caring who heard. "I speak 3 languages. I was good at my job. But none of that matters now, does it? Because I'm standing here begging for leftover food while people inside are taking pictures of their meals to post online." Isaiah's cries grew weaker, which scared Keisha more than when he was screaming. Weak cries meant he was giving up. She bounced him gently, but she was shaking so hard from cold and hunger that it probably wasn't helping. "Please," she whispered. "I'm not asking for money. I'm not asking for charity. I'm asking for food that's going to be thrown away anyway. Food that will sit in a dumpster while my baby starves." The doorman was about to respond when the restaurant's front door opened. A man in an expensive suit stepped out, talking on his phone. He was tall, maybe in his 30s, with dark hair and the kind of confidence that came from never worrying about money. He glanced at Keisha, then did a double take when he saw the baby. "I'll call you back," he said into his phone and hung up. The doorman straightened up. "Mr. Johnson, I was just handling this situation." Mr. Johnson studied Keisha's face. His eyes were dark brown, almost black, and they seemed to see right through her. She felt exposed, like he could read every bad decision and piece of bad luck that had led her to this moment. "What's going on here?" His voice was deep, calm. "I'm sorry to bother you," Keisha said quickly. "I know this looks bad. I know you probably think I'm some kind of—" "What do you need?" he interrupted. The simple question caught her off guard. Not, "What's wrong with you?" or "Why don't you get a job?" or any of the other things people usually said. Just, "What do you need?" Food, she said honestly. My baby needs formula. I need food. I was hoping maybe the restaurant could spare some leftovers. Things that were going to be thrown away anyway. He nodded slowly like this made perfect sense to him. When did you last eat? 2 days ago. And the baby? He had his last bottle this morning. I mixed it with extra water to make it last longer, but... She trailed off embarrassed. Mr. Johnson pulled out his phone and dialed. Romano, it's James. I need you to prepare a to-go order. Make it enough for several meals. Include baby formula if you have any, and if not, send someone to get some. He paused. No, not for me. I'll explain later. Have it ready in 10 minutes. He hung up and looked at Keisha. What's your name? Keisha. Keisha Williams. James Johnson. It's nice to meet you, Keisha. The simple politeness of it made her want to cry. When was the last time someone had treated her like a human being worth knowing? You don't have to do this, she said. I mean, thank you, but I don't want you to think I'm trying to take advantage. Are you trying to take advantage? No. Then we're fine. He studied her face again. You said you have a college degree? Marketing and communications. I worked for Peterson and Associates for 3 years before. She gestured vaguely at Isaiah. Good company. I know Tom Peterson. Of course he did. Rich people all knew each other. Do you have a place to stay tonight? James asked. Yes. I mean, it's not much, but we have an apartment. Heat? Electric. She hesitated. Not right now. But I'm working on it. James nodded like this was a puzzle he was solving in his head. The restaurant door opened and a waiter emerged with 2 large bags and a container of baby formula. Here you go, Mr. Johnson. Thank you, Romano. James handed the bags to Keisha. This should last you a few days. Keisha stared at the bags. They probably contained more food than she'd seen in weeks. I don't know how to thank you. You don't need to thank me. James pulled out his wallet and handed her a business card along with several $100 bills. But I do have a proposition for you. Keisha's heart sank. Of course. Nothing was free. There was always a catch. What kind of proposition? She asked carefully. The legal kind, James said, reading her expression. I run a company downtown. We always need good people, especially people who speak multiple languages and have marketing experience. If you're interested in a job, call me tomorrow. Keisha looked at the card. It was thick, expensive paper with gold lettering. Johnson Industries. She'd heard of them. They owned half the buildings in Seattle. You're offering me a job? Just like that. I'm offering you an interview. What you do with it is up to you. Isaiah had finally stopped crying and was looking around with curious eyes. The formula container in the bag meant he could eat tonight. The money meant she could get the electricity turned back on. The job offer meant maybe, just maybe, she could stop living day to day. Why? She asked. Why are you helping me? James was quiet for a long moment, looking at something she couldn't see. Everyone deserves a second chance, Keisha. Sometimes life knocks you down through no fault of your own. That doesn't mean you should stay down. He turned to walk back into the restaurant, then paused. Call me tomorrow. We'll figure something out. And then he was gone, leaving Keisha standing in the rain with bags of food, money, and the first real hope she'd felt in months. She looked down at Isaiah, who was looking back at her with his father's eyes. What just happened, baby? She whispered. Who was that man? But Isaiah just yawned and closed his eyes, finally peaceful. For the first time in months, Keisha thought maybe everything was going to be okay. She had no idea that her life was about to change in ways she never could have imagined. The rain kept falling, but somehow it didn't feel as cold anymore. Keisha spent the entire night staring at James Johnson's business card. She'd fed Isaiah 3 full bottles of formula and eaten her first real meal in days, but sleep wouldn't come. The encounter felt like a dream too good to be true. Rich men didn't just hand out jobs to desperate women they met on the street. There had to be a catch. But Isaiah was sleeping peacefully in his crib, his belly full for the first time in weeks. The electricity was back on, casting a warm glow through their tiny apartment. The cash James had given her was enough to pay the overdue bills and buy groceries for a month. Even if the job offer was fake, he had already saved their lives. At exactly 9 a.m., Keisha dialed the number on the card. Her hands were shaking. Johnson Industries, this is Sarah. Hi, my name is Keisha Williams. I met Mr. Johnson last night and he asked me to call about a possible job interview. Oh yes, Ms. Williams. Mr. Johnson has been expecting your call. Can you come in today at 2 p.m.? Today? Keisha looked around her apartment. She had exactly one professional outfit left. a black dress she'd been saving for job interviews. It was wrinkled and probably smelled like baby spit up, but it would have to do. Yes, I can be there. Excellent. The address is on the card. Ask for me when you arrive, and I'll take you up to Mr. Johnson's office. Keisha hung up, her heart racing. This was really happening. The Johnson Industries building was downtown, a gleaming tower of glass and steel that seemed to touch the clouds. Keisha had walked past it hundreds of times when she worked nearby, but she'd never been inside. The lobby was all marble and mirrors, with fresh flowers and the kind of quiet that money bought. Keisha Williams, she told the receptionist, trying to keep her voice steady. Of course. Sarah will be right down. Sarah turned out to be a woman about Keisha's age, professional but warm. As they rode the elevator to the 28th floor, she made small talk about the weather and the traffic, putting Keisha at ease. Just so you know, Sarah said as they approached James's office, Mr. Johnson isn't like other executives. He's very direct but he's fair. Just be honest with him. The office was bigger than Keisha's entire apartment, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. James stood behind his desk looking out at the view. He was wearing another expensive suit, this one navy blue, and when he turned around, Keisha was struck again by how young he looked for someone who clearly had so much power. Keisha, thanks for coming. Please sit down. She sat in one of the leather chairs across from his desk, trying not to think about how much it probably cost. How's Isaiah today? The fact that he remembered her baby's name surprised her. He's good. Thank you. The formula, it made all the difference. Good. James sat down across from her. Tell me about your work experience. For the next hour they talked about her education, her previous job, her skills. James asked smart questions and actually listened to her answers. He didn't seem to care that she'd been unemployed for months or that she was a single mother. He only seemed interested in what she could do. The position I have in mind is in our marketing department, he said finally. We're launching a new community outreach program and we need someone to run it. Someone who understands what it's like to need help. Keisha's breath caught. Are you saying I'm qualified because I was begging for food last night? I'm saying you're qualified because you have the skills and experience we need. The fact that you've been through hard times just means you'll understand the people we're trying to help. What kind of community outreach? Food programs, job training, childcare assistance. We want to partner with local organizations to make a real difference. James leaned forward. I'll be honest with you, Keisha. This isn't charity. I need someone who can do this job well. But I also believe that everyone deserves a chance to prove themselves. The salary he offered was more than she'd made at her previous job. The benefits included health insurance and childcare assistance. It seemed too good to be true. Can I ask you something? Keisha said. Of course. Why me? Really? You could hire anyone. People with more experience, people who don't have babies, people who won't need help getting back on their feet. James was quiet for a long moment. Have you ever been so focused on climbing that you forgot why you started climbing in the first place? Keisha wasn't sure what he meant, but she nodded. I built this company from nothing. I've made more money than I know what to do with. But somewhere along the way I lost sight of why it mattered. Last night, seeing you with Isaiah, remembering what it feels like to really need something, it reminded me. Reminded you of what? That none of this means anything if you're not using it to help people. There was something in his voice, a sadness or regret that made Keisha think there was more to the story. But she didn't push. When would I start? Monday if you want the job. Keisha looked out the window at the city spread below them. A week ago she was begging for leftover food. Now she was being offered a chance to help other people in the same situation. I want it, she said. I want the job. James smiled, and for the first time since she'd met him, he looked truly happy. Welcome to Johnson Industries, Keisha. As they shook hands, Keisha felt a spark of something she couldn't name. It wasn't just gratitude, though she was grateful. It wasn't just relief, though she was relieved. It was something deeper, more complicated. One more thing, James said as she was getting ready to leave. We have a company daycare on the 5th floor. Isaiah is welcome anytime. Keisha felt tears threatening again. Thank you. For everything. Thank you for saying yes. On the elevator ride down, Keisha caught her reflection in the polished doors. She looked different somehow. Still tired, still worn down by months of struggle, but there was something new in her eyes. Hope maybe. Or possibility. She couldn't wait to get home and tell Isaiah about their new life. She also couldn't stop thinking about the sadness she'd heard in James's voice when he talked about losing sight of what mattered. What had happened to him? And why did she suddenly want to know everything about the man who had just changed her world? Outside, the rain had stopped and the sun was trying to break through the clouds. Keisha took it as a good sign. Everything was about to change, and for the first time in a long time she was excited to see what came next. But as she walked home, she didn't notice the black car that had been parked outside her apartment building for the past 3 days, or the man inside it making notes about her schedule. She didn't know that James Johnson was not just any businessman, but one of the most powerful men in the city, with enemies who would do anything to hurt him. And she definitely didn't know that by accepting his help, she had just painted a target on her back. Keisha's first week at Johnson Industries passed in a blur of meetings, training sessions, and getting to know her new colleagues. The marketing department was on the 15th floor, a bright, modern space with an open floor plan and more amenities than she'd ever seen in an office. There was a coffee bar, a meditation room, and even a small gym. Isaiah loved the company daycare. The teachers were professional and caring, and the facility was better equipped than most private schools. Every time Keisha picked him up, he was happy and fed and clean. It felt like a miracle. But the more time she spent in the building, the more she noticed strange things. First, there was the security. Every floor required a key card, and some elevators wouldn't even stop at certain floors unless you had special clearance. The security guards were polite but alert, and she noticed they all had earpieces and the kind of posture that suggested military or police backgrounds. Then there were the meetings that happened behind closed doors, with people she never saw around the office. Serious-looking men and women who arrived in expensive cars and disappeared into conference rooms for hours at a time. And there was James himself. She rarely saw him, despite working in his building. When she did catch glimpses of him in the hallway or elevator, he was always surrounded by assistants and security personnel, moving with the kind of urgency that suggested important business. "Is Mr. Johnson always so busy?" she asked Sarah one day as they had lunch in the company cafeteria. Sarah glanced around, then leaned closer. "James doesn't just run this company, Keisha. He owns half the real estate in Seattle, has investments all over the world, and sits on the boards of about 20 different organizations. Plus, there are always people trying to get meetings with him, trying to pitch him ideas or ask for money." "That sounds exhausting." "It is. I've been his assistant for 5 years, and I don't think I've ever seen him take a real vacation. He works 18-hour days most of the time." "Doesn't he have any family? Friends?" Sarah's expression grew careful. He's very focused on work. I don't think he has much of a personal life." That afternoon, Keisha was working late on a proposal for a new food program when she realized she'd left some important files in the copy room on the 20th floor. The building was mostly empty, just a few security guards and cleaning staff. She took the elevator up and found the copy room easily enough. But as she was gathering her papers, she heard voices from an office down the hall. The door was slightly open and she couldn't help but overhear. "The threats are getting more specific," a man's voice said. "They know about your daily routine, your security team shifts. Someone is feeding them information." "Do we know who?" That was James's voice, but it sounded different. Harder, more serious than she'd ever heard it. "We're working on it. But in the meantime, I think you should consider increasing your protection detail. I'm not going to live like a prisoner in my own building. James, these people aren't playing games. They've already tried once. Keep your voice down." Keisha realized she was eavesdropping and quickly gathered her papers. But as she turned to leave, she accidentally knocked over a small trash can. The noise echoed in the quiet hallway. The voices in the office stopped immediately. Keisha's heart was racing as she hurried to the elevator. She pressed the button repeatedly, praying it would come quickly. Just as the doors opened, she heard footsteps in the hallway behind her. "Keisha." She turned around to find James standing there, looking concerned. "What are you doing up here so late?" "I needed some files from the copy room." "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to disturb anyone." James studied her face. "Did you hear anything just now?" Keisha hesitated. She could lie, but something in his expression told her he would know. "I heard voices. Something about threats and security." "I'm sorry, I wasn't trying to listen." James was quiet for a long moment. Then he stepped into the elevator with her and pressed the button for the parking garage instead of her floor. "Where are we going?" "I think it's time you and I had a real conversation." They rode down in silence. Keisha's mind was racing. What kind of threats? Who would want to hurt James? And why did she suddenly feel like she was in danger too? The parking garage was dimly lit and mostly empty except for a few expensive cars. James led her to a black SUV with tinted windows. "Get in," he said. "James, I don't think." "Please. Trust me." Against her better judgment, she got in. The interior was luxurious, with leather seats and what looked like a small computer system built into the dashboard. "I need to tell you some things," James said as he started the engine. "Things I should have told you before I offered you the job." "What kind of things?" "The kind that might make you want to quit." They drove through the city in silence for several minutes before James pulled into the parking lot of a small diner. It was the kind of place that stayed open all night and served coffee strong enough to wake the dead. Inside they took a booth in the back corner. The waitress, a tired-looking woman in her 50s, brought them coffee without being asked. "Johnson Industries isn't just a regular company," James began. "We do government contracts, international business deals, things that sometimes put us in conflict with people who don't play by the rules." "What kind of people?" "The kind who make threats when they don't get what they want." Keisha felt a chill run down her spine. "Are you saying you're in some kind of danger?" "I'm saying that anyone close to me could potentially be in danger. Anyone who works for me, anyone who might be used to get to me." The implications hit her like a truck. "Isaiah. You think someone might try to hurt Isaiah?" "I don't know. I hope not. But I need you to be aware of the possibility." Keisha set down her coffee cup with shaking hands. "Why didn't you tell me this before?" "Because I didn't think it would matter. I thought I could keep you separate from that part of my life, keep you safe in the regular business operations. But now I'm not sure that's possible." They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of the revelation settling between them. "I should quit," Keisha said finally. "Maybe you should. But I need this job. Isaiah needs the insurance, the daycare, the stability." "I know. And the community outreach program, we could really help people." "I know that too." Keisha looked across the table at James. In the harsh fluorescent light of the diner, he looked older, more tired. She could see the weight of responsibility in his eyes, the constant stress of looking over his shoulder. "What happened to you?" she asked quietly. "What made your life so complicated?" James was quiet for a long time. "That's a story for another day." "But there will be another day?" He looked at her with an expression she couldn't read. "That depends on what you decide to do." "If I stay, what changes?" "Security measures. Someone will keep an eye on you and Isaiah, make sure you're safe. Your apartment building will be monitored. Your daily routine will be noted and protected." "That sounds like prison." "It's protection." "What's the difference?" James almost smiled. "Prison is where they put you when you've done something wrong. Protection is what we do to keep you safe when someone else might hurt you for something you haven't done." Keisha thought about Isaiah, sleeping peacefully in their apartment. She thought about the bills that were finally paid, the job that gave her purpose, the future that had seemed impossible just a week ago. "If I stay," she said slowly, "I want to know everything. No more secrets, no more overheard conversations in hallways. If my baby's safety is at risk, I have a right to know why." James nodded. "Fair enough. And I want to know about you. Really know about you. Not just the public version. That's more complicated. So is trusting someone with my child's life." James looked out the window at the late-night traffic. "Okay. But not tonight. Tonight, I just need to get you home safely." As they drove back to her apartment, Keisha realized that everything had changed again. A week ago she was begging for food. Now she was potentially a target for people who wanted to hurt one of the most powerful men in Seattle. But as scary as it was, she also felt something else. For the first time since Isaiah was born, she felt like she mattered to someone. Not just as an employee or a charity case, but as a person whose safety was important enough to worry about. "James?" she said as they pulled up to her building. "Yeah. Thank you for being honest with me. Thank you for not running away." As she got out of the car, Keisha saw the security guard James had mentioned. He was sitting in a car across the street, trying to look casual but clearly watching her building. She waved at him. He looked surprised but waved back. If she was going to live with protection, she figured she might as well be friendly about it. But as she climbed the stairs to her apartment, she couldn't shake the feeling that her life was about to get a lot more complicated than she'd bargained for. The next few weeks settled into a routine that was almost normal. Keisha threw herself into the community outreach program, working with local food banks and job training centers to identify families who needed help. The work was fulfilling in a way her old marketing job had never been. Every family they helped felt personal. Isaiah was thriving in the company daycare, and Keisha found herself staying late most evenings, partly because she loved the work and partly because she kept hoping to run into James. Since their conversation at the diner, he'd been different around her. More open, more willing to stop and chat when they passed in the hallway. She learned that he drank his coffee black, that he'd grown up poor in Portland, and that he built his first business while still in college. But she also learned that he was lonely in a way that money couldn't fix. "Do you ever get tired of being responsible for so many people?" she asked him one evening. They were both working late and she'd brought him coffee from the break room. "Every day," he said without hesitation. "But that's not really the point, is it?" "What is the point?" "Making sure the responsibility means something." They were sitting in his office, the city lights sparkling below them. Isaiah was asleep in his portable crib in the corner, having worn himself out playing with the other babies in daycare. "Can I ask you something?" Keisha said. "Shoot. Why don't you have a family? A wife, kids, someone to go home to?" James was quiet for a long moment. "Hard to have a normal relationship when your life isn't normal." "What do you mean?" "I mean, how do you explain to someone that you can't go to regular restaurants because you need security clearance for the location? How do you bring someone home when your house looks like a fortress? How do you have kids when there are people who might hurt them to get to you?" Keisha felt a pang of sympathy. "So you just don't try?" "I tried once. Her name was Amanda. We dated for 2 years, got engaged." "What happened?" "Someone sent her photos of us together with her face circled in red. Along with her work address, her parents' home address, her sister's kids' school." Keisha felt sick. "Oh my God." "She broke up with me the next day. Moved to another state. I haven't heard from her since." "James, I'm so sorry." He shrugged, but she could see the pain in his eyes. "It's the price you pay for the life I've chosen." "But you're not happy." "Happy is a luxury I can't afford." Keisha looked at him sitting behind his massive desk, surrounded by all the symbols of his success, and realized he was the loneliest person she'd ever met. "What if someone was willing to pay that price with you?" she asked quietly. James looked up sharply. "What do you mean?" "I mean, what if someone understood the risks and decided you were worth it anyway?" Their eyes met across the desk and Keisha felt something shift between them. It was dangerous territory, she knew. He was her boss, her savior, the reason she and Isaiah had a roof over their heads. But there was something about him that drew her in, something beyond gratitude. "Keisha." James started. "Mom?" Isaiah had woken up and was looking around the office with sleepy eyes. The moment broke and Keisha went to pick up her son. "Hey baby. Did you have a good nap?" Isaiah smiled and reached for her, then looked over at James with curious eyes. "He's getting big," James said, his voice carefully neutral again. "He likes you," Keisha said. "He doesn't usually smile at strangers. Maybe he knows I'm not really a stranger anymore." Isaiah was indeed smiling at James, making little cooing sounds and reaching toward him. "Want to hold him?" Keisha asked impulsively. James looked terrified. "I don't really know how." "It's easy. Just support his head." She placed Isaiah in James's arms and for a moment, the powerful businessman looked completely helpless. But then Isaiah settled against his chest and looked up at him with wide, trusting eyes. "He's so small," James said wonderingly. 6 months old. He's actually getting pretty big for his age." James held Isaiah carefully like he was made of glass. "I've never held a baby before." "Really? Never?" "Never had reason to." Watching them together, Keisha felt something warm unfold in her chest. James looked different holding Isaiah, younger somehow, more vulnerable. And Isaiah seemed completely comfortable, like he belonged there. "He trusts you," she said softly. "Kids don't know any better. They haven't learned to be afraid yet. Maybe they know something we don't." James looked at her over Isaiah's head. "Maybe." They stayed like that for a while, the three of them in the quiet office with the city spread out below them. It felt domestic, peaceful, like they were a family instead of a boss and employee brought together by desperation and chance. Then James's phone buzzed with a text message, and the spell was broken. "I should get him home," Keisha said, reaching for Isaiah. "Wait." James pulled out his phone and showed her the text. "We have a problem." The message was short, "Pretty baby. It would be a shame if something happened to him." Keisha felt the blood drain from her face. "They know about Isaiah." "It looks that way." "How?" "We've been careful. The security. Someone's been watching. Taking pictures." James handed Isaiah back to her and immediately got on his phone. "Marcus, we have a situation. I need a full security detail on Keisha Williams and her son, effective immediately." He listened for a moment, then hung up. "What does this mean?" Keisha asked, holding Isaiah tighter. "It means things just got a lot more serious. Maybe I should quit. Maybe I should take Isaiah and leave the city. They already know where you live, where you work, what your routine is. Running won't solve anything now." Keisha felt tears starting. "This is my fault. I never should have gotten involved with you. Hey. James moved around the desk and stood in front of her. This is not your fault. This is mine. I should have seen this coming. What are we going to do? We're going to keep you safe. Both of you. How? James was quiet for a moment, thinking. There's only one way to guarantee your security. What? You and Isaiah are going to have to stay with me. Keisha stared at him. What do you mean, stay with you? I mean, move into my house. It's the most secure location I have. My security team is there 24/7. James, I can't. You can't stay in your apartment. It's not safe anymore. But your house. That's moving really fast. This isn't about us, Keisha. This is about keeping Isaiah safe. The way he said her son's name with such care and concern made her heart skip. She looked down at Isaiah, who was playing with her necklace, completely unaware that his world had just been turned upside down again. How long? She asked. I don't know. Until we figure out who's behind this and stop them. And if we can't stop them? James met her eyes. We will. There was something in his voice, a certainty that made her believe him. But there was also something else, something that suggested this was about more than just her and Isaiah's safety. Okay, she said finally. But I have conditions. Name them. I pay rent. Whatever's fair for the space we're using. Keisha. I'm not a charity case, James. I have a job now, I can contribute. Fine. And we establish boundaries. Clear rules about what this arrangement is and isn't. What do you mean? Keisha felt her cheeks warm. I mean, we're both adults, we're going to be living in the same house, and there's something between us. We both know it. James didn't deny it. What kind of boundaries did you have in mind? I don't know yet. But we need to talk about it before we're living together. Fair enough. As they made arrangements for her and Isaiah to pack some things and move to James's house that night, Keisha couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to change again. But this time she wasn't sure if it was for better or worse. Living with James Johnson, the man who had saved her life and was now risking his own to keep her safe, was either going to be the best thing that had ever happened to her, or it was going to break her heart. Probably both. James's house wasn't what Keisha had expected. She'd imagined something cold and modern, all glass and steel like his office building. Instead, it was warm and welcoming, a restored Victorian mansion in the Queen Anne neighborhood with original hardwood floors, stained glass windows, and a wraparound porch. It's beautiful, she said as he showed her and Isaiah around. My grandmother's house, James explained. I bought it from the estate when she died and had it restored. It's the only place that's ever felt like home to me. The security was invisible but present. She noticed cameras tucked discreetly into corners, motion sensors by the windows, and at least 3 different men who looked like bodyguards positioned around the property. Your room is upstairs, James said, leading them up a grand staircase. I had some baby furniture delivered this afternoon. The guest room was larger than her entire apartment, with a king-size bed, a sitting area, and French doors that opened onto a small balcony. In the corner sat a beautiful wooden crib and a changing table, both clearly expensive and brand new. James, this is too much. Isaiah needs a safe place to sleep. You bought all this in one afternoon? I made some phone calls. That was so typical of him, she was learning. Problems got solved with phone calls. Needs got met with phone calls. It was a level of power she was still getting used to. There's a baby monitor system connected to my room and the security office, James continued. Someone will always be listening. Do you really think they would try something here? I don't know. But I'm not taking any chances. That first night was awkward. They had dinner together in his enormous dining room, making small talk while Isaiah sat in a high chair that had also magically appeared. The conversation felt stilted, formal, like they were strangers instead of 2 people who had been growing closer over the past few weeks. After dinner, Keisha gave Isaiah a bath in the guest bathroom's beautiful clawfoot tub, then put him to bed in his new crib. She was exhausted, emotionally drained from the day's revelations, but she couldn't sleep. Around midnight, she heard footsteps in the hallway outside her room. Then a soft knock. Keisha? Are you awake? She opened the door to find James standing there in sweatpants and a t-shirt, looking as tired as she felt. Can't sleep either? She asked. I keep thinking about that text message. Come in. They sat on the small couch in her sitting area, the baby monitor crackling softly between them. I'm sorry, James said. I'm sorry you got pulled into this. I'm not. He looked surprised. What do you mean? I mean, yes, I'm scared. But I'm not sorry. A month ago, Isaiah and I had nothing. Now we have jobs, health insurance, a future. And now we have someone who cares enough to protect us. This isn't the life you signed up for. Did you sign up for it? What do you mean? I mean, when you were a kid dreaming about being successful, did you imagine it would come with death threats and bodyguards? James was quiet for a moment. No. I imagined it would fix everything. I thought money would make me safe, make me powerful enough that no one could hurt me. But it didn't work that way. No. It just made me a bigger target. So why do you keep doing it? Because backing down would mean letting them win. And because... He trailed off. Because what? Because I'm good at it. Building things, solving problems, making deals. It's the only thing I've ever been really good at. That's not true. What else am I good at? Keisha looked at him sitting there in the soft lamplight, this powerful man who seemed so lost. You're good at seeing people. Really seeing them. You saw me that night outside the restaurant when everyone else saw a problem to be solved or ignored. That's not a skill. It's the most important skill there is. They talked until almost dawn about his childhood in Portland, about her dreams of making a difference in the world, about what it meant to be responsible for other people's lives. It was the most honest conversation she'd ever had with anyone. When Isaiah woke up at 6, James insisted on helping with his morning routine. He was awkward at first, fumbling with the diaper tabs and holding the bottle wrong, but he was determined to learn. Why are you doing this? Keisha asked as she watched him successfully feed Isaiah without spilling formula everywhere. Doing what? Taking care of us. And don't say it's just about security. James looked down at Isaiah, who was gazing up at him with trusting eyes. I've never had anyone depend on me for anything other than business. And it feels important. More important than any deal I've ever made. Over the next few days they fell into a routine. James would leave early for work while Keisha got Isaiah ready for daycare. They'd meet back at the house for dinner, then spend the evenings together, talking or watching movies or just enjoying the quiet domesticity of it all. Keisha found herself looking forward to these evenings more than she cared to admit. James was different at home, more relaxed, more open. He laughed at Isaiah's baby babbling and didn't seem to mind when drool got on his expensive shirts. You're a natural at this, she told him one evening as he successfully got Isaiah to sleep after only 20 minutes of fussing. I never thought I'd be good with kids. Why not? I don't know. I never had any siblings, never babysat, never had reason to be around children. What about when you were a child? Didn't you play with other kids? James was quiet for a moment. Not really. We moved around a lot when I was young. My mom worked 3 jobs, so I spent most of my time alone. That sounds lonely. It was. But it taught me to be self-sufficient. Sometimes being self-sufficient is just another word for being scared to need anyone. James looked over at her, and she saw something vulnerable in his expression. Maybe. That night, after Isaiah was asleep and they were sitting together on the couch in James's living room, Keisha asked the question that had been nagging at her. James, what exactly do you do? I mean, I know you run Johnson Industries, but what kind of business requires this level of security? James was quiet for so long she thought he wasn't going to answer. Government contracts mostly. Defense, technology, infrastructure. We do work that sometimes puts us in conflict with foreign interests. What kind of conflict? The kind where other countries would prefer we didn't exist. Keisha felt a chill. You're talking about espionage. International threats. I'm talking about being successful enough to matter on a global scale. And the people threatening us? Could be competitors. Could be foreign agents. Could be domestic terrorists who don't like what we represent. What do we represent? American business interests. Capitalism. Success. The weight of it was overwhelming. She thought they were dealing with regular criminals, people who could be reasoned with or paid off. This was something much bigger and more dangerous. Maybe Isaiah and I should leave, she said quietly. Go somewhere far away where we can't be used against you. Is that what you want? The honest answer was no. Over the past few days, living in James's house, sharing meals and conversations and quiet moments, she'd started to feel something she hadn't felt since before Isaiah was born. She felt like she belonged somewhere. I want Isaiah to be safe. That's not what I asked. Keisha looked over at him, this complicated, powerful, lonely man who had changed her life in every possible way. No, she said finally. It's not what I want. Then we'll figure out another way. What if we can't? We will. How can you be so sure? James reached over and took her hand. Because now I have something worth fighting for. The simple touch sent electricity through her entire body. She'd been trying to ignore the growing attraction between them, telling herself it was just gratitude or proximity or the strange intimacy of their situation. But sitting there in his living room, holding his hand while their baby slept upstairs, she realized it was much more than that. She was falling in love with James Johnson. And that might be the most dangerous thing of all. The next morning brought news that changed everything. James received a call while they were having breakfast, and Keisha watched his face grow grim as he listened. When? He asked. How bad? Isaiah was in his high chair, happily throwing pieces of banana on the floor, completely oblivious to the tension filling the room. Okay. Yes. Increase security at all properties. And I want a full background check on everyone who's had access to Keisha's information. He hung up and looked at her with an expression she couldn't read. What happened? She asked. Someone broke into your old apartment last night. Keisha felt the blood drain from her face. What? The landlord found the door broken down this morning. Place was torn apart. Were they looking for something? Or someone? The implication hung heavy between them. If she and Isaiah had still been living there. This is escalating, James said, more to himself than to her. What does that mean? It means whoever is behind this is getting desperate. And desperate people do unpredictable things. James made several more phone calls, his voice growing more tense with each conversation. Keisha tried to focus on feeding Isaiah, but her hands were shaking. Pack a bag, James said when he finished his calls. Where are we going? Somewhere safer. Safer than here? This house is secure, but it's also known. We need to disappear for a while. An hour later, they were in James's car heading out of the city. Isaiah was strapped into a car seat that had materialized from somewhere, and Keisha was trying not to think about how quickly her life had been turned upside down again. Where are we going? She asked as they merged onto the highway. I have a place in the mountains. Off the grid, completely secure. For how long? Until my security team figures out who's behind this. And if they can't? James glanced at her in the rearview mirror. They will. The confidence in his voice was reassuring, but Keisha couldn't shake the feeling that he wasn't telling her everything. The place in the mountains turned out to be a beautiful log cabin on 50 acres of forest, completely hidden from the nearest road. It had solar panels, a generator, and enough supplies to last for months. You really do think of everything, Keisha said as she looked around the well-stocked kitchen. I've learned to plan for contingencies. How many contingencies do you plan for? All of them. That first day at the cabin was surreal. It was incredibly peaceful, with nothing but trees and mountains visible from the windows. Isaiah loved the change of scenery, crawling around on the hardwood floors and babbling at the wildlife he could see through the glass doors. But Keisha felt trapped. She couldn't go outside without James, couldn't make phone calls, couldn't contact anyone to let them know where she was. What about work? She asked over dinner. People will wonder where I am. Sarah is handling it. As far as anyone knows, you're taking some personal time. For how long? As long as it takes. That night, after Isaiah was asleep in the cabin's single bedroom, Keisha sat on the couch with James, watching the fire crackle in the stone fireplace. It should have been romantic, but she felt too anxious to enjoy it. Tell me the truth, she said. How dangerous is this really? James stared into the fire for a long moment. Honestly? I don't know. I've received threats before, but never anything this targeted, this personal. What makes this different? You and Isaiah. What do you mean? Before, if someone wanted to hurt me, they had to come at me directly. But now they have leverage. They have something I care about more than my own safety. The admission hung between them, heavy with implication. James? I know this is complicated, Keisha. I know the situation we're in isn't normal or fair to you. That's not what I was going to say. What were you going to say? She looked at him sitting there in the firelight, this powerful man who had given up everything to keep her and her son safe. I was going to say that you have something to lose now too. What do you mean? I mean, maybe the reason this feels different is because you're not just protecting employees or business interests anymore. You're protecting people you care about. James met her eyes. Is that what you think this is about? Isn't it? Keisha, I need you to understand something. What I feel for you, what's happening between us, it's not just about the situation we're in. What is it about? It's about the fact that for the first time in my adult life, I can imagine a future that includes more than just work and money and deals. What kind of future? The kind where I come home to people who matter to me. The kind where I have a reason to be careful, to think about consequences, to want to live through whatever threats come my way. Keisha felt her heart racing. James? I know the timing is terrible. I know this isn't how relationships are supposed to start. But I can't pretend I don't feel it. Feel what? Like you and Isaiah are my family now. The words hit her like a physical blow. Not because they were unwelcome, but because they were exactly what she'd been afraid to hope for. You can't say things like that, she whispered. Why not? Because what if this is just the situation? What if when everything goes back to normal, when there are no more threats and we're not living in each other's pockets, what if these feelings disappear? Do you think that's what will happen? Keisha looked at him, at this man who had turned her life upside down in the best possible way, and realized she was terrified of the answer. I don't know. I do. How can you be so sure? Because what I feel for you has nothing to do with the circumstances and everything to do with who you are. Who am I? You're the woman who begged for food for her baby but never asked for anything for herself. You're the woman who accepted help but insisted on earning it. You're the mother who makes her son's safety more important than her own comfort. You're the person who makes me want to be better than I am. Tears were threatening now and Keisha blinked them back. James, I can't do this if it's going to end badly. What if it doesn't end at all? What do you mean? What if instead of assuming this will end, we decide to make it permanent? Keisha stared at him. Are you asking me what I think you're asking me? I'm asking you to stay. Not just until the threat is over, but permanently. Move in with me, let me help raise Isaiah, build a life together. That's crazy. Why? Because we barely know each other. Because the circumstances are insane. Because I don't want to be with someone just because he saved my life. Is that the only reason you'd be with me? Keisha thought about the past few weeks, about the conversations they'd had, the way he looked at Isaiah, the way he made her feel like she mattered. No, she said quietly. But I need to know it's real. How do we do that? I don't know. They sat in silence for a while, the fire crackling between them and all the uncertainty of their situation. Can I ask you something? Keisha said finally. Anything. If we weren't in this situation, if we'd met under normal circumstances, would you still be interested in a single mother with no money and a complicated life? James was quiet for a long moment. Can I ask you something back? Okay. If we'd met under normal circumstances, would you be interested in someone whose life comes with death threats and bodyguards and the constant possibility of danger? That's not the same thing. Isn't it? We're both asking whether the other person would want us without the circumstances that brought us together. And I think the answer is that we'll never know because the circumstances are part of who we are now. Your strength in the face of adversity is part of what I love about you. My ability to protect you and provide for you is part of what you appreciate about me. So what are you saying? I'm saying maybe we stop trying to separate our feelings from our situation and just admit that this is our situation, and our feelings are real regardless of how they started. Keisha looked at him across the flickering firelight and realized he was right. She was falling in love with James Johnson not despite their circumstances, but because of how he'd handled them. How he'd seen her as a person worth saving, worth protecting, worth caring about. Okay, she said. Okay, what? Okay, let's see what happens when this is over. Let's see if what we feel now is strong enough to survive normal life. James smiled, and it transformed his entire face. Deal. But as they sat together planning a future neither of them was sure they'd live to see, Keisha couldn't shake the feeling that their biggest test was still coming. They'd been at the cabin for 5 days when James received the call that changed everything. We found him, Marcus, his head of security, said over the encrypted phone. It's someone you know. James's face went pale as he listened. Keisha was feeding Isaiah his afternoon bottle, but she could tell from James's expression that the news wasn't good. Are you sure? James asked. How long? He listened for several more minutes, asking short, sharp questions. Finally, he hung up and stared out the window at the forest. What is it? Keisha asked. They know who's been threatening us. Who? James turned to look at her, and she saw something in his eyes she'd never seen before. Fear. My business partner. Richard Chin. Your business partner is trying to hurt us? He's trying to hurt me. You and Isaiah are just collateral damage. Why would he do that? James sat down heavily on the couch. Money. Power. Revenge. Take your pick. What did you do to him? I caught him stealing from the company. Client funds, government contract money, millions of dollars over several years. When? Last month. Right before I met you. The timing hit Keisha like a truck. Wait. You met me the night after you confronted your business partner about stealing? Yes. So when you helped me, when you offered me a job, when you brought me into your life, you knew you had an enemy who might try to hurt anyone close to you? James's silence was answer enough. Oh my God. Keisha stood up, holding Isaiah tighter. You knew. You knew I could be in danger and you brought me into your life anyway. Keisha, let me explain. Explain what? That you decided to play hero with my life and my son's life without telling me the risks. It wasn't like that. What was it like? I thought I could keep you safe. I thought I could keep you separate from that part of my business. But you couldn't. No. Keisha felt sick. All this time, she'd been falling for a man who had put her and her child in danger without their knowledge or consent. I need to think, she said, heading toward the bedroom. Keisha, please? No. Just, give me some space. She spent the next hour pacing the small bedroom while Isaiah napped, trying to process what she'd learned. James had known he had an enemy, known there could be retaliation, and he'd still brought her into his life. Was it because he cared about her, or because he was so used to controlling everything that he thought he could control this too? There was a soft knock on the door. Keisha? Can we talk? She opened the door to find James standing there with 2 cups of coffee and the most apologetic expression she'd ever seen. I know you're angry, he said. I'm furious. You have every right to be. Do I? Because right now I don't know what rights I have. I don't know if I'm a girlfriend or an employee or just someone you felt sorry for. You're the woman I love. The words should have made her happy, but instead they made her angrier. Don't say that now when I'm questioning everything about how we got here. James set down the coffee and sat on the edge of the bed. What do you want to know? Everything. The truth this time. Richard and I started Johnson Industries together 15 years ago. Equal partners, best friends, we were going to conquer the world together. What changed? Success changed him. The more money we made, the more he wanted. He started taking shortcuts, making deals that were profitable but questionable. I tried to rein him in, but he got worse. And the stealing? I'd suspected for months, but I couldn't prove it. When I finally got the evidence, I confronted him. Told him he had to pay the money back and resign quietly, or I'd have him prosecuted. What did he say? He said I'd regret crossing him. And then you met me. And then I met you. Keisha sat down next to him, still holding the sleeping Isaiah. Were you thinking about Richard when you helped me that night? Honestly? No. I was thinking about how hungry you looked, how desperate. I was thinking about your baby. But later? When you offered me the job. James was quiet for a moment. Later, I thought maybe having you close would make it easier to protect you. From a threat I didn't know existed. Yes. That wasn't your choice to make, James. I know. I could have said no if I'd known the risks. I could have made an informed decision about my son's safety. I know. But you took that choice away from me. I thought I was protecting you. You thought you were controlling the situation. James looked at her with surprised recognition. You're right. I know I'm right. I'm used to solving problems by managing all the variables. I saw you as a variable I could manage. And now I see you as a person whose life I've completely disrupted because I was too arrogant to consider that I might not be able to control this situation. It was the most honest thing he'd said since she'd known him, and some of her anger began to fade. What happens now? She asked. Now we figure out how to stop Richard. What does that mean? It means I have to go back to Seattle. Absolutely not. Keisha. No. You are not leaving me and Isaiah here while you go play superhero. It's not safe for you to come with me. It's not safe for us to be separated either. What if something happens to you? What if Richard decides to come after us here? James was quiet, thinking. We stick together, Keisha said firmly. Whatever we're facing, we face it together. Together? That's what you said you wanted, isn't it? A family? Well, families don't abandon each other when things get dangerous. Even when one member of the family made a terrible decision that put everyone else at risk? Keisha looked at him, this powerful, successful man who looked completely lost. Everyone makes mistakes, James. The question is what you do next. What should I do next? You should start treating me like a partner instead of a problem to be solved. What does that look like? It looks like telling me the truth about what we're up against. It looks like including me in decisions that affect my life and my son's life. It looks like trusting me to be strong enough to handle whatever comes next. James nodded slowly. I can do that. Can you? Really? Because you're used to being in control, and this situation isn't going to be controllable. I'm learning. Good. Because we're about to find out just how much we can trust each other. James reached over and took her hand. I love you, Keisha. I know the timing is terrible and the circumstances are insane, but I love you and I love Isaiah and I want to build a life with you. Even if that life includes danger? Even if. Even if I don't always do what you think is best? Even if I'm not the grateful, manageable woman you thought you were saving? James smiled. Especially then. Keisha felt something shift inside her chest. The anger was still there, but underneath it was something stronger. Love, yes, but also determination. Okay, she said. Let's go back to Seattle and end this. Together? Together. As they started making plans to return to the city, Keisha realized that their relationship had just passed its first real test. James had made a terrible decision, but he'd owned up to it. She'd been furious, but she'd chosen to fight for them instead of walking away. Now they just had to survive whatever Richard Chin had planned for them. The drive back to Seattle was tense. James had arranged for a security convoy, with armed guards in the cars ahead of and behind them. Isaiah slept through most of it, but Keisha couldn't relax. Every car that passed them could be a threat. Every stop for gas felt like an opportunity for attack. Tell me about Richard, she said as they drove through the mountains. What's he really capable of? James gripped the steering wheel tighter. He's smart, well-connected, and has nothing left to lose. When people like that decide to go to war, they don't play by any rules. Has he actually hurt people before? Not directly. But he's made deals with people who have. What kind of people? The kind who solve problems with violence. Keisha looked back at Isaiah, still sleeping peacefully in his car seat. Maybe we should keep driving. Go somewhere far away, start over. He'll find us. And running won't solve the core problem. Which is? He won't stop until he's destroyed me or I've destroyed him. The finality in James's voice scared her. What does that mean? It means this ends one of two ways. Either I prove he's been stealing and have him arrested, or he succeeds in destroying everything I've built. And us? Where do we fit in this war between you two? James glanced at her in the rearview mirror. You're what he's using to get to me. But you're also what I'm fighting for. They reached Seattle after dark, driving through the city streets under heavy security. Instead of going to James's house, they went to a hotel downtown, a place James owned where the security was absolutely airtight. The penthouse suite was beautiful but felt like a prison. Guards at every exit, bulletproof windows, and the constant awareness that they were being hunted. How long do we have to live like this? Keisha asked as she put Isaiah to bed in the suite's bedroom. Marcus thinks we can wrap this up within a week. How? By forcing Richard into the open. What does that mean? James was quiet for a moment. It means using myself as bait. Absolutely not. Keisha. No. We are not using you as bait. We'll find another way. There is no other way. He wants me, so I give him a chance to come after me directly. And what happens to me and Isaiah when you're dead? I'm not going to die. You don't know that. James sat down next to her on the couch, taking her hands in his. Listen to me. Richard is escalating because he's desperate. The longer we wait, the more dangerous he becomes. We have to end this now. By getting yourself killed? By giving him what he wants while making sure we're ready for him. This is exactly what I was talking about at the cabin. You're making decisions for all of us without including me. What would you have me do? Include me in the plan. Let me help. It's too dangerous. Everything about this situation is dangerous. At least if I'm involved, I know what's happening. James was quiet, thinking. What if I told you there was a way for you to help that didn't put you in direct danger? I'd say tell me more. Richard thinks he's been using you to get to me. But what if we turn that around? What if we use that connection to get to him? How? By making him think he's succeeded in driving us apart. Keisha felt a chill. You want me to pretend to leave you? I want you to be seen leaving me. Publicly, angrily, with Isaiah. Make it look like his plan worked, like threatening you was the thing that finally broke us up. And then he'll get cocky. He'll make a mistake. And we'll be ready for him. What kind of mistake? He'll come after me directly, thinking he's isolated me from the one thing I care about most. But I won't really be gone. You'll be somewhere safe, with full security, in constant communication with my team. Keisha thought about it. The plan made sense, but it required her to trust James completely. To trust that he could handle Richard alone, and that his security team could keep her and Isaiah safe while he did it. What if something goes wrong? She asked. Then at least you and Isaiah will be safe. That's not good enough. What do you mean? I mean if something happens to you, Isaiah and I aren't safe. We're not protected. We're just alone again. James looked surprised, like he hadn't considered that angle. You're right, he said finally. I've been thinking about this all wrong. What do you mean? I've been thinking about keeping you safe from Richard. But I should be thinking about keeping us safe. All of us. Together. What would that look like? It would look like a plan where all three of us come out of this alive and together. They spent the next several hours working out the details. Instead of using Keisha as bait, they would use Richard's greed against him. James would offer him a deal, a chance to steal even more money, but the meeting would be a trap. What if he doesn't take the bait? Keisha asked. He will. He's too arrogant to resist the chance to outsmart me one more time. And you're sure your security team can handle him? I'm sure we can handle him together. The next morning, James made the call. Richard? It's James. We need to talk. Keisha couldn't hear the other side of the conversation, but she could see James's face growing tenser as he listened. Fine, James said finally. Tomorrow night. The restaurant where we had our first business meeting. Just you and me. He hung up and looked at Keisha. He agreed. Just like that. Just like that. Do you think he suspects it's a trap? He probably assumes it's a trap. But he also thinks he's smarter than me. Is he? James smiled grimly. We're about to find out. That evening, as they prepared for what could be their final confrontation with Richard, Keisha realized something important. James, I need to tell you something. What? I love you too. He stopped what he was doing and looked at her. What? I love you. I should have said it before, but I was scared. Scared it wasn't real, scared it wouldn't last, scared of what it meant. And now? Now I'm still scared, but I'm more scared of not saying it. In case something happens tomorrow. James crossed the room and pulled her into his arms. Nothing is going to happen tomorrow. You can't promise that. I can promise that I'm going to do everything in my power to come back to you and Isaiah. We're going to do everything in our power to make sure all three of us get through this. All three of us? You, me, and Isaiah. We're a family now, remember? We protect each other. James held her tighter. I love you, Keisha Williams. I love you too, James Johnson. As they held each other in the quiet hotel suite, with Isaiah sleeping peacefully nearby and guards protecting them from the dangers outside, Keisha felt something she hadn't felt since her parents died. She felt like she belonged somewhere, with someone, in a way that was permanent and real. Tomorrow they would face Richard Chin and end this threat once and for all. But tonight they were exactly where they belonged. Together. The restaurant was empty except for Richard Chin sitting alone at a corner table, exactly where he'd said he'd be. James approached slowly, his security team positioned around the building in carefully planned locations. Keisha was in a van outside with Marcus, watching everything through hidden cameras and listening through James's wire. Richard looked older than James remembered, worn down by stress and whatever substances he'd been using to cope with his crumbling life. But his eyes were sharp and alert, and he smiled when he saw James approaching. You look good for a man whose life is falling apart, Richard said as James sat down. You look terrible for a man who thinks he's winning. Am I not winning? Your little girlfriend and her baby are terrified, hiding somewhere while you come crawling to me for peace talks. James kept his expression neutral, but Keisha could hear the tension in his voice through the earpiece. What do you want, Richard? What I've always wanted. What I deserve. Half of everything we built together. You gave up your right to anything when you started stealing. Richard laughed. Stealing? I was taking what belonged to me. You always acted like you were the only one with ideas, the only one who mattered. I was the one doing the work while you were busy spending money we hadn't earned yet. And now? Who's doing the work now that your attention is divided between business and playing house with some desperate single mother? In the van, Keisha flinched. Marcus put a warning hand on her arm, reminding her to stay quiet. Leave them out of this, James said evenly. Oh, I don't think so. They're the best leverage I've ever had against you. Amazing how soft you've gotten since you started playing daddy. What do you want? James repeated. I want the offshore accounts. All of them. The Swiss accounts, the Cayman accounts, everything you've been hiding from the IRS. James was quiet for a moment. Those accounts don't exist. Of course they do. Just like the bribes you've been paying to get those government contracts. Just like the illegal surveillance equipment you've been selling to foreign governments. Keisha felt her blood run cold. Was Richard telling the truth? Was James involved in illegal activities? You're fishing, James said calmly. Am I? Then you won't mind if I share my theories with the FBI. Along with some very interesting photos of you meeting with some very questionable people. What photos? Richard slid a manila envelope across the table. Take a look. James opened the envelope and went very still. Recognize those meetings? Those people. Those briefcases full of cash. These are fake. Are they? The FBI won't be able to tell. Digital photography is so sophisticated these days. Through the earpiece, Keisha heard James's sharp intake of breath. What do you want? $50 million. Transferred to accounts I'll specify. Tonight. I don't have $50 million in liquid assets. Then you better figure out how to get it. Because if you don't, these photos go to every law enforcement agency in the country, along with some very detailed accusations about your business practices. And if I pay you, then I disappear. You never see me again and your little family gets to live happily ever after. How do I know you won't just come back for more? Because $50 million is enough for me to disappear permanently. New identity, new country, new life. James was quiet for several minutes, and Keisha could see him thinking through his options. I need time to arrange the transfer, he said finally. You have until midnight. That's not enough time. Then you'd better get started. Richard stood up from the table. Oh, and James? Don't even think about trying anything clever. I have people watching your girlfriend and her baby right now. Anything happens to me, anything at all, and they'll never be safe again. As Richard walked away, Keisha felt panic rising in her chest. Were they really being watched? Were there people positioned to hurt them even now? James, she said into her microphone, get out of there now. Copy that. James's voice came back through the earpiece. 20 minutes later they were back in the hotel suite, the security team sweeping for bugs and checking every possible entry point. Those photos, Keisha said as soon as they were alone. Are they real? James was pacing the room, his phone pressed to his ear as he made rapid-fire calls to his lawyers and accountants. James, she said louder. Are those photos real? He hung up his phone and looked at her. Some of them. Keisha felt like she'd been punched in the stomach. What does that mean? It means some of the meetings happened, but not for the reasons Richard is claiming. What reasons? Government work. Legal government work. The kind that requires security clearances and non-disclosure agreements. And the briefcases? Equipment. Documents. Not money. But they look like money transfers. That's the point. Richard has taken real photos of legitimate government business and created a narrative around them that makes them look illegal. Can you prove the real story? Not without compromising national security. The work I do for the government is classified. Keisha sat down heavily on the couch. So even if you're innocent, you can't prove it. Not in a way that would satisfy law enforcement or the media. Which means Richard wins. Not necessarily. What do you mean? James stopped pacing and looked at her. I mean, maybe it's time to stop playing defense and start playing offense. How? By giving Richard what he wants, but not the way he expects it. I don't understand. Richard wants $50 million. What if we give it to him but we make sure it comes with strings attached? What kind of strings? James pulled out his phone and made another call. Marcus, I need you to set up a meeting with Agent Stevens at the FBI. Tonight. He hung up and looked at Keisha. We're going to tell the FBI everything. Everything? The real story about those photos, the classified work I do for the government, Richard's extortion attempt, all of it. But you said you can't reveal classified information. I can't reveal details. But I can reveal that the work exists and that Richard is using photos of that work to commit extortion. And they'll believe you? Agent Stevens has worked with me before. She knows about my government contracts. She'll be able to verify my story through official channels. What about the $50 million? We're going to give it to Richard, but it's going to be marked money. The FBI will track every transaction, every account it touches. When Richard tries to spend it or move it, they'll arrest him. What if he doesn't take the bait? He will. He's too greedy and too desperate to walk away from $50 million. 2 hours later, they were in a secure conference room at the FBI field office, telling their story to Agent Stevens and her team. The agent was a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s who listened to everything without interruption. You understand, she said when James finished talking, that this is a very dangerous game you're proposing to play. More dangerous than letting Richard blackmail me for the rest of my life? Potentially, yes. If he realizes it's a trap, if something goes wrong with the money transfer, if he decides to hurt Ms. Williams and her son out of spite. That's why we need your protection. We can offer some protection, but we can't guarantee your safety. Especially if Mr. Chen has already positioned people to watch you. Keisha spoke up for the first time. What are our other options? You could pay him and hope he keeps his word. And if he doesn't? Then you're back where you started, but $50 million poorer. Or we could run, James said. Leave the country, start over somewhere else. And spend the rest of our lives looking over our shoulders, Keisha added. Agent Stevens nodded. Those are essentially your three options. Pay and hope, run and hide, or fight back and risk everything. Keisha looked at James, then at Isaiah sleeping peacefully in his carrier. What do you think? I think we fight, James said without hesitation. We fight for our life together, for Isaiah's future, for the right to live without fear. Even if it's dangerous? Especially because it's dangerous. If we don't end this now, it will never end. Keisha took a deep breath. Okay, let's do it. Agent Stevens outlined the plan. The money transfer would happen at midnight as Richard had demanded. But the bills would be marked, the accounts would be monitored, and federal agents would be watching every step of the process. What's our job? Keisha asked. Stay safe and stay out of the way, Agent Stevens said. This is FBI business now. But as they left the federal building and headed back to their hotel, Keisha couldn't shake the feeling that Richard Chen wasn't going to go down without a fight. And when desperate men decided to fight, innocent people often got hurt. She just prayed that she, James, and Isaiah wouldn't be among them. Midnight came faster than Keisha had expected. She sat in the secure hotel room with Isaiah, watching James prepare for what could be the most important phone call of his life. FBI agents were positioned throughout the hotel and monitoring all communications. The $50 million was ready to transfer, every bill marked and traceable. Are you ready for this? Keisha asked as James checked his watch. As ready as I'll ever be. What if he changes his mind? What if he wants to meet in person instead of doing the transfer electronically? Then we follow his lead and trust that the FBI knows what they're doing. At exactly midnight, James's phone rang. Richard. James. Do you have my money? I have it. All 50 million? All of it. Good. I'm going to give you account numbers. You're going to transfer the money immediately, no delays, no games. And then this is over? Then this is over. James nodded to Agent Stevens, who was listening in through sophisticated surveillance equipment. She gave him a thumbs up. Give me the account numbers, James said. For the next 10 minutes, Keisha watched James methodically transfer $50 million to accounts controlled by Richard Chen. Every transaction was monitored, every routing number recorded, every penny tracked by federal systems. It's done, James said finally. All of it. All of it. Good. It's been a pleasure doing business with you, James. Enjoy your new life. The line went dead. Agent Stevens immediately got on her radio. Money is in motion. All units track and monitor. For the next hour they waited. FBI computers tracked the money as it moved from account to account, following digital breadcrumbs across multiple countries and banking systems. Then Agent Stevens's radio crackled with news. We have him. Subject is at a private airfield attempting to board a chartered plane to Switzerland. Ground units are moving in now. 20 minutes later they received confirmation. Richard Chen was in custody, arrested for extortion, money laundering, and attempting to flee the country with marked federal funds. Is it over? Keisha asked. It's over, Agent Stevens confirmed. Mr. Chen will be facing federal charges. Based on the evidence we've gathered tonight, he's looking at 20 to 30 years in prison. James sat down heavily on the couch, the tension finally leaving his body. I can't believe it worked. The money? All recovered. It never left federal custody, technically speaking. Keisha felt tears of relief starting. So we're safe. You're safe. All of us. Agent Stevens smiled. All of you. As the FBI agents finished their paperwork and prepared to leave, James pulled Keisha aside. There's something I need to ask you, he said. What? Now that this is over, now that there's no more danger, no more crisis bringing us together, do you still want this? Us. Keisha looked at him, this man who had saved her life and then risked his own to protect her and her son. Are you kidding? I'm serious. I know the circumstances of how we met were unusual. I know there was pressure and fear and gratitude all mixed up with whatever feelings developed between us. Now that all of that is gone, I need to know if what we have is real. James Johnson, are you actually asking me if I still love you now that you're not my only option for survival? I guess I am. Keisha started laughing. You ridiculous, wonderful, complicated man. Is that a yes? That's a, how could you even question it, yes. James smiled and pulled her into his arms. So what happens now? Now we go home. Home? Your house. Or house. Whatever you want to call it. And then? And then we figure out how to be a normal family. Normal. Well, as normal as we can be with your job and my past and Isaiah's complete lack of concern for adult schedules. James laughed and kissed her. I love you, Keisha Williams. I love you too. And James? Yeah. Next time you're thinking about making major life decisions that affect all of us, maybe run them by me first? Deal. 6 months later, Keisha stood in the kitchen of James's house. Their house now, watching him try to convince Isaiah to eat strained peas. The baby was having none of it, preferring to fling the green mush in all directions rather than consume it. I think he's trying to redecorate, she said as a particularly large glob of peas hit the wall behind James's head. Your son has terrible taste in interior design. My son. When he's being difficult, he's your son. When he's being charming, he's our son. And when he's flinging food? Definitely your son. Keisha laughed and took over feeding duty while James cleaned peas out of his hair. The community outreach program she ran for Johnson Industries had helped over 200 families in the past 6 months. Isaiah was walking now, getting into everything and keeping them both exhausted and entertained. Richard Chin had been sentenced to 25 years in federal prison. The photos he'd taken were revealed to be exactly what James had claimed, legitimate government business taken out of context. James's security clearance had been renewed, and his government contracts continued. Keisha, James said as they finished cleaning up the kitchen. Yeah. I have something for you. He pulled a small velvet box out of his pocket and got down on one knee in the middle of their pea-splattered kitchen while Isaiah banged on his high chair and babbled happily. Keisha Williams, will you marry me? Keisha stared at the ring, a beautiful diamond that caught the light from every angle. Are you proposing to me while our child throws food and your hair is full of vegetables? I'm proposing to you in the middle of our real life. Messy, chaotic, imperfect, and exactly where I want to be. Yes, she said without hesitation. Yes, yes, yes. As James slipped the ring onto her finger and stood up to kiss her, Isaiah clapped his hands and squealed with delight, as if he understood that something wonderful had just happened. So what happens now? Keisha asked when they broke apart. Now we keep building our life together. One day at a time, one decision at a time, one overturned bowl of peas at a time. Sounds perfect. Even when it's not perfect? Especially when it's not perfect. Later that evening, after Isaiah was asleep and they were sitting together on the couch, Keisha thought about how much her life had changed. A year ago, she was begging for food outside a restaurant. Now she was engaged to the man she loved, raising her son in a beautiful home, doing work that mattered, surrounded by security and stability and love. Do you ever think about that night? She asked James. The night we met? Every day. Do you regret any of it? The complications, the danger, the way everything happened so fast. James was quiet for a moment. I regret that you and Isaiah were put in danger because of my problems with Richard. I regret that I didn't tell you the truth sooner. But regret meeting you? Never. Even though it turned your whole life upside down? My life needed to be turned upside down. I was so focused on building wealth and power that I forgot what any of it was for. And now you know? Now I know it's all for this. For you, for Isaiah, for the family we're building together. What if you hadn't seen me that night? What if you just walked past like everyone else? Then I'd still be sitting alone in boardrooms making deals that didn't matter with people I didn't care about. And I'd probably still be struggling to survive. But that's not what happened. No, that's not what happened. James pulled her closer. We found each other, Keisha. Against all odds, in the middle of the worst night of your life and what I didn't know was going to be the best night of mine, we found each other. And Isaiah found a father. And I found a purpose. As they sat together in the quiet house, Keisha realized that their love story wasn't just about two people falling in love. It was about two people saving each other, about a broken family becoming whole, about discovering that sometimes the most unexpected encounters can change everything. James? Oh, thank you. For what? For seeing me. Really seeing me. Not just a woman begging for food, but a person worth saving. Thank you for letting me. For letting you what? For letting me be the man I didn't know I could be. Outside, Seattle sparkled in the darkness, full of people living their own complicated lives and facing their own challenges. But inside their home, Keisha Williams and James Johnson had everything they needed. Love, family, hope, and the absolute certainty that whatever came next, they would face it together. The story that started with, "May I have your leftovers, sir?" had become something neither of them could have imagined. It had become forever.